Donald Trump is still on his
There's
his
still
tour.
a chance. There's still a chance.
This may be, I may be dating myself, but in the Monty Python's Holy Grail, I keep thinking of that of the knight who has no arms and no legs, and he's still.
I'll bite you to death. Is that
exactly? Yes,
there
that
we
one.
go.
Well,
See?
I guess there you go.
Not that dated.
That's not, apparently not. But he's still claiming, he sort of like I didn't really lose, but we're going to go forward with the transition. And that is going to be hugely important for a number of reasons. Obviously, national security, you want there to be some continuity. There's only so much that can happen domestically because you need, we won't know really in terms of what can genuinely happen domestically until we find out what happens in Georgia in many respects. However, what can happen, at least in terms of like what the executive branch can do, is to begin to construct logistics for the distribution of vaccines, which will come online in some of the instances, very possibly by the end of December. And of course, not huge amounts, but amounts that we're going to go, I would imagine, directly to
frontline workers, high-risk individuals. Yeah, I mean, I think I heard on the news that they're going to start distributing the vaccine for frontline workers and other essential workers in New Jersey by, I think, a little over 100,000 by the end of December, that is mid to late December, which is extremely significant. Yes.
And as there's a lot of obviously logistics involved in just getting them to frontline workers. In some respects, it may be even more difficult because you're trying to target specific people. Now, I would imagine what's going to happen is the states are going to be heavily involved in that. But as you start to talk about how you're going to get these vaccines widely distributed, how you're going to pay for it, how are you going to pay for it, huh? Who's going to pay for it and whatnot. But the logistics are the big deal here. And apparently, that is what you're going to see a tremendous amount of work on that front, obviously, because the sooner the vaccines can be distributed and of course, manufactured as well. The U.S. government has already provided a significant amount of money to these companies for the production of these vaccines. In fact, I believe the production's probably already going on now. And part of that was the idea being, we can waste some money if these vaccines turn out to be not so great. But we will talk more about that as the weeks go on when we return from Thanksgiving. But for those of you who are still sort of debating what you're going to be doing for Thanksgiving, I'm not in a position to tell people, what they should do, I guess. I guess to a certain extent, I can tell you what my opinion is, which is you should not have a big Thanksgiving festival. You should not travel great distances because those great distances mean that you will be exposed or potentially exposed to other people who you do not know, who are not necessarily, in your potted social circle. In the Northeast, I think this part of the country more or less is doing better than the rest, primarily because of the experience we had at the beginning of this pandemic, at least in this country, and the devastation it wrought. But here is, and one of the things that's difficult about this is that, occasionally you'll read here and there someone's personal experience. Occasionally here or there, you'll see a video of a nurse or a doctor talking about their experiences in hospitals that are now overrun. We're getting reports in rural areas around the country that they're having to send patients to the cities because well, there's just not the capacity to handle the number of patients that they have.
Right. And this was warned about months and months ago when New York City was hit the hardest at the start of the pandemic, that eventually it would spread to rural areas and they would not have the capacity to deal with the amount of patients and with the necessary resources to help them. And we're seeing that in droves right now.